Hello, welcome back to the Live Reality Games podcast. My name is Steven Stewart, and we are here today to talk about the finale of Surviving Bloomington All-Stars. This is a great episode, and we got to see a player be crowned, but it wouldn't be right for me to talk about it alone. So with me is the current reigning champ for Surviving Reelfoot, Angela. Angela, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Steven?
I am doing great, and I'm very excited for you to be here because I feel like you've had two different experiences of a Survivor Endgame. You have Can You Survive the first season? I believe you came in fourth place,
Yeah, I did.
right? Before, and you got cut right before the end.
That's
And
true.
then you have Surviving Reelfoot, where you made it to the end and you carried out that victory. And so this final 5-4-3 is, I think, you've seen a lot of aspects of that.
Yes, for sure. And even watching it, we can talk about it when we get there, but I really resonated with a lot of these players
Mm-hmm.
in different ways, which I think is something that these games are. This is why they're so compelling
Mm-hmm.
because I really connected to a lot of the end game players, especially because we're all kind of playing our own game, but we all kind of identify with certain aspects of it too. So.
Mm-hmm. So we had a chance to talk last year after your victory in Reelfoot, and for those who'd like to hear me talk to Angela for several hours, that you can find that online. But just generally, how have you been since your season?
Really, really good. I stay in touch with a lot of people that I played Reelfoot with. We're a very close group, I think, which I'm guessing all seasons kind of are. But other than that, I'm just working a lot and spending time at home. So nothing super exciting.
Well, I think we should talk kind of some high level things of the episode, and I'd love to hear like your thoughts of the season leading up to this episode and your expectations for this finale.
I I'm not going to lie. I know that some people had like preconceived notions of what they thought was going to happen, and I just try to stay very open-minded to the possibilities of all of these players. Like the
Mm-hmm.
players at the end, I felt like nobody really didn't have a shot.
Yeah.
I felt like there were some really big targets. The group of Rosie, Jordan, and Megan, I did kind of pick up on some talks, I think like 2 episodes prior,
Mm-hmm.
of them being really, really tight. There was a conversation, I think they were like in a field. And the way that they were all talking with each other, I was like, oh, these guys are tight.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really wondering if they would be loyal to each other when it came down to that final three. Um, I think Hannah was a boss player this season. I was so excited to see if she could make it to the end. I think she's been talking about Final Tribal since like halfway through the
Mm-hmm.
season. Um, so yeah, I went in expecting a really big finale episode, and I was not let down.
So what were some of the surprises or key moments for you in this finale?
um, honestly, I was surprised, and I'd be curious to know um, why no one told Adam bluntly, or if they did tell him, because I think he knew
Mm-hmm.
within himself. But we had moments out at Reelfoot and in Can You Survive where there was really no reason not to tell somebody that they
Mm-hmm.
were going to be the vote that round. Um, sorry, James.
Yeah, I
Uh,
was thinking your final 12, final 11 with Keegan and James, but
yeah,
I don't remember that ever happening in the merge. Did it at final 5 or 4 for you?
um, a little bit, in all honesty. I
Mm-hmm.
think Lauren knew.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she pretty much knew. So I was kind of surprised when it got down to the end of it. I am also kind of surprised that nobody took a gamble with Hannah and kind of took
Mm-hmm.
out the other, like Jordan or Megan at the end.
And I think that was one of the biggest shocks for me is seeing because I don't think I picked up on you that Rosie, Megan, and Jordan were so close. I saw Jordan and Megan, I saw Jordan and Rosie, but I hadn't quite connected the three of them together. And we even heard final tribal plans from Rosie, and like Megan was not in that picture when we've
Right.
been hearing them. So it was very surprising to see Rosie say, "Nope, I am set with this three and not
Yeah.
willing to take a gamble and let Hannah go to the fire."
Yes. Yes. Agree. 100% agree.
And I think, you know, I don't know if it would have made a difference. Like, let's say he puts Hannah on fire, Hannah loses. Maybe Hannah's more open to giving him a vote at that point because he gave her that shot.
Yeah, maybe.
Right?
Maybe. I think everybody kind of knew when Hannah wrote Jordan's name down on her vote out,
Mm-hmm.
everybody knew where her end vote was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know. You don't know if those moments would make a difference in the end.
I mean, if you're Jordan, like you're just like, I think you look at Hannah saying, I can't vote on Megan, so let's put, and Hannah's a vote for me, so let's put Hannah on the jury.
Makes sense. Totally makes sense.
So we have to talk about the elephant in the room. Jordan is the winner of Surviving Bloomington All Stars. What was your reaction to seeing this happen?
I mean, I kind of feel she did a great job throughout the season with the interpersonal connections. We call it a social game, but I really think Jordan did a great job of connecting with people, not just socially, but as people.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of comments about people kind of referencing these moments with her throughout the game, and you could see it, I think, as the season went out. So I think those are things that really resonate at Final Tribal when you're trying to decide between a couple of really great players. I think you're going to pull back on not I don't know, because everybody is so different with their vote. Some people love advantages and challenge beasts, and that's what they're going to base their vote on. But I do think that there's something in people in general that really like to feel heard
Mm-hmm.
and understood. And I think Jordan did a really good job doing that with multiple people.
I found amusing in Jordan's Final Tribal statements where Jordan was like, I had to play my social game because I didn't have immunity, I didn't have advantages. I'm like, you've had a little. It
Yeah,
hasn't been a total vacuum of those.
yeah, yeah, I did. I actually, yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah, I think what was most impressive to me is how Jordan sculpted the end game, where I saw there's a world where we go like Adam 7, Megan 6, Jordan 4, or worse, like Adam 6, Megan 5, Jordan 4, and like Jordan is just shy of
Yeah,
Final Tribal after losing her shields. But
yeah,
Jordan, like taking out Griffin and Dallas at 7 and 6 was so pivotal for
yeah.
her opening up the end game so that she was there no matter what.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that hinged on Megan. I think, the Megan and Dallas relationship and just having Megan even at the end, Megan, she said it, I think in the Hannah vote out,
Mm-hmm.
when Hannah brought up loyalties and like making a game move,
Mm-hmm.
and she was like, other people's loyalties don't dictate my own. And that was like quote of the episode for me. That was so well said. Because I think she stayed loyal to Jordan. I think that really helped Jordan at that
I
end.
also felt like Megan had no choice because, like, you look who Jordan's voting. Yeah, Jordan's voting on every person Megan has, and so Megan can only really rely on, like,
That,
Jordan.
yeah,
And like when Hannah and Megan are talking at that final four final tribal council, and Megan's like, "I don't know your game. We barely spoke. I have no relationship with you, and you are an unknown." I'm just like, "Ooh, that is unfortunate. That like." I think Hannah had assumed Megan would be gone long before, and so like she didn't need to invest in Megan that she might have needed to.
right. And I think I think that was also probably part of her game plan was to
Mm-hmm.
hide certain things about her game, and it
Mm-hmm.
ended up almost backfiring in the end. But I don't think she ever could have known that.
And I think in the nature, it is a bit of a weird All Star season. The fact you have three non Bloomington All Stars competing with 15 Bloomington All Stars, and the fact Hannah made such a deep run until she runs into the rock of the season 4 alliance, all right,
Right.
of Rosie, Megan, and Jordan. And she's like, I can't break this because I haven't played with them before. I just don't have the deeper connections like they
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, I worked on production for another live game with Hannah, and it was shortly after Bloomington, and she refused to tell me anything about the season. She was like, "I'm not going to say anything until it airs." But she did say, "I am very proud of the game that I
Mm-hmm.
played. I'm happy with how I placed. I felt like I got a lot of redemption from
Mm-hmm.
previous game that I had played, and I feel really good about myself.
Yeah,
So
I think if anyone watches Hannah's Survival Challenge 2018, this is a polar opposite game from her game there, where she was on the top. In this game, she was always scrapping on the bottom, and
crappy.
it's easy to play from the top, and it's hard to play from the bottom. And the fact that Hannah did it and did it so well and made so deep, and I think had things just shaken out differently, I think there's many other combinations she's sitting there at the end.
Oh, 100%. I totally agree. I will also give Hannah mad props because her confessionals were hilarious. She definitely made confessional time fun. So yeah, no, I think there's definitely a world where she easily probably could have been sitting there.
Now, having sat through a final tribal council yourself, and of course winning it, what was your thoughts watching this tribal council play out?
There were a lot of things that were said, I think, that really hit home for me. In the opening speeches, I think Megan coming forward with her speech about saying that she realizes that she's enough to finally sit at the end, and that vulnerability that goes along with that was very powerful to me, very, very moving. I think in the opening speech, I think Jordan started talking about the sniper reference. That's like when she got into that. And I was like, ooh, that's sassy, which I think can either work for you or against you. And then, of course, Rosie kind of recalled like his social game and his social strategy. So overall, the final tribal, I was very excited to see what they said, as well as like the jury questions, of course.
Yeah, I thought for Megan, I think it was hard having the pitch in her pitcher game as like, hey, I had advantages and I had challenge wins, and don't get me wrong, Megan did a lot, but I think being forced to differentiate from Jordan and not being able to say I did as much social because Jordan's claimed this social, I think that was a challenge to her. And I think Rosie impressed me a lot more with this final travel speech.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I was interested to see what he said, and I feel like he did a good job of like specific examples. So yeah, I was definitely impressed.
I was wondering if the Mia vote was going to be more of a keystone to his argument. It was there, but it wasn't like, I don't know.
Yeah. I do wish. I wish there were more, I guess, very specific examples of things. It was like a vague. Like I won challenges and I had a good social game, but hearing specific examples tied to specific jurors. But I mean, I've been there and you can barely remember your own name. So.
At this point, you've been 7 days in Tennessee and you're just like, oh gosh, food is so close. Sleep is so close.
I remember trying to write stuff in this dirt to try to remember it for later on. Like they did a great job. It was a great final tribal, but I think sometimes, like specific examples of strategy play. The word strategy, I don't think was really mentioned at final tribal, and I think people could have really capitalized on that too.
And I think Jordan, because for me, like I like the sniper reference, but I didn't really. I felt like Jordan's game could have been pitched better, but again, like you're running this on exhaustion and no food and like lack of sleep, and it's hard, but. I feel like had things been pushed more strategical, I think she could have really shined there a lot by saying like, look how I guided the strategy to protect Adam, to protect Megan, to force votes on the players I knew had nothing to do with my end game, like Griffin and Dallas.
I completely agree. I think that's where she was going with a sniper reference. I won't lie to you. If somebody said that they sniped me, that probably would rub me the wrong way if I was on the jury. But I know what she was getting at. And I mean, she won, so
it worked.
But I think if she had kind of detailed that path a little bit better verbally, I think it really would have just been amazing to see. She was right there.
Yeah, I think the verb that I've been using when I think about Jordan's endgame is the word sculpt. How did Jordan sculpt the finale to her liking?
Yes, yeah. Good word.
I have to use my English literature degree for something.
comes in handy.
So, I mean, I guess, we'll talk about this more later, but what are some lessons you think that we can take away from a season like this? I especially if we know that Surviving Reelfoot is having an all-star game this summer, right? And that's
Yeah.
it's going to be drawing from more than 4 seasons. But we'd have no idea what the composition of that game will be. But what are some lessons players can draw from watching a game like this?
I think specifically from Jordan's game,
Mm-hmm.
and she spoke very well about this, I think, is that
Mm-hmm.
you can play a completely different game than you played before.
Mm-hmm.
And you can excel and succeed with that because she just won this. And I love the conversation between her and Hannah. And Hannah was like, I come in not knowing anybody and I have this huge hurdle. And Jordan was like, hold up. Also came in with a hurdle because of my previous game. I came in with a reputation. I didn't think people were going to trust me. And I played completely different this season.
Mm-hmm.
So I also came in with my own bag of demons, essentially. And I think that's so important for like returner players to understand that one, people might not play the same that they previously did. And you also don't have to play the same. You can change up your game. You can learn things. You can grow.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my favorite things about these games is not only do you grow so much as a person and you learn so much about yourself and your character and your strengths and your weaknesses, but as a player, you learn so much about yourself out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be altered and tailored. And I think Jordan was a great example of that. So was Megan. I think she grew a lot and she learned a lot about herself.
I think Megan Jordan just had so much more flexibility than Megan this game because Megan got pinned with that target so much earlier, and Jordan was able to keep that target and play forever and the focus on. And that gave Jordan so much more wiggle room. While I think Megan, getting the end is super commendable, but Megan was really restrained for what she could do for so much of the game as a result.
Yeah. Yeah. And she had to play within the confines of all of that. So, and obviously, I mean, she did a great job. She made it to the end, but I think it made it more difficult for her to get votes probably at the end.
Yeah. And I think for me, like, there's two things that stood out to me. First is, watch the composition of the seasons people come from. Don't make it your entire game like, oh no, too many season 2, 3, 4 players, but keep an eye out, right? Because we definitely see here like that season 4 came together and came to the end that way.
Right.
And so I would say like it's not, I don't think it's a forefront first order thing. You're like, we need to cut people from season X. I think you want it, but especially as the merge progresses, like, do I see people from maybe different factions coalescing into a season X alliance? Is I think what you're more worried about then.
I think that's probably by far the smartest strategy, especially going into like a returnee season. I have more anxiety about preconceived notions. So I don't think I would watch a thing. Like I didn't, before I went on Reelfoot, I did not watch previous seasons. I don't like to go into a game knowing anything at all about the people, about the game itself. Like I very much like a fresh take because I feel my intuition is better than my brain is sometimes. So I've never done homework on any game that I've ever played. So I think sometimes just going in very open-minded is helpful too.
And I think the other takeaway for an all-star season is the importance of stability. I think when you look at Jordan's game, it's very similar to, like, say, Jeremy Collins or Sarah Lacina, of a player who is able to kind of sit close to the middle, provide people with comfort and reassurance and stability, and people flock to a player like that.
100%. Jordan definitely embraces. She seems very grounded, and especially out in an environment and in a game that is anything but grounded, it's very calming for other people. And I think people tend to gravitate towards those kind of players. Yeah, for sure.
James says hello, Angela.
Hi, love.
So is there anything else, big picture items or things we want to talk about right off the bat, or do you want to kind of sink our teeth into a bit of the meat of the episode?
Yeah, let's get into it.
So we open up with the final 5 immunity challenge, and this is a balancing challenge where players have a long wooden stick or maybe with a flat piece, and they're balancing a bottle on the end. How would you do in a challenge like this?
Oh my God, not good. Probably not good, only because I tend to shake a lot, especially with, like not a lot of sleep or food or anything.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You kept your hand above your head and it rains for a long time, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I did do that. Yeah, that's true. But every challenge where there's like a plate or balls or discs or whatever, like I'm just like this the whole time. I'm stubborn, which is why I was able to keep my hand in the air for hours on end. But balance stuff for me is probably not the best.
So, which one do you hate more? The balancing of the bottle on the oar, or the fact they're on a small wooden perch and balancing on that too?
I think the balance on the oar, for sure.
And so one thing I noticed in terms of like they have this kind of it's not a massive piece of wood, but it's like notable enough that you have to think about it. Now, would your feet be perpendicular to her or lined up parallel on it?
I have thought about this actually.
Oh, good. I have too.
I do. So I think my front foot would be aligned with the beam, and I think my back foot would be more of like a stabilizer.
Okay, so you kind of go for the split method.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw Hannah was doing the fully parallel.
Yeah.
It looked like most other people were doing perpendicular. I think my feet would be too big. I'd be forced to do perpendicular. I don't think I have a choice in that matter.
I also think like your torso is kind of torqued if you're completely facing one direction. And your body cramps out there in the weirdest position. So I feel if you were facing forward a little bit more, it'd be easier.
Yeah, I have had some miserable, like the speed at which my body goes numb in any kind of endurance challenge always concerns and rattles me.
It checks out.
Yeah. So I think going into like the final 5, I think the question was, will Adam win immunity again? And quickly he falls out of the challenge.
Yeah.
And suddenly that is such a key moment of just like Adam is not going to be immune all the way to final tribal council, or at least potentially immune.
I know.
So as a winner yourself, what is your thoughts watching Boogie and Adam play this All-Star season?
I was very curious because that's a very heavy loaded thought, right? As a winner to go into another live game. In all honesty, I think it helped them very much that they were on an all-star cast versus going into a game with just a bunch of players and a couple of winners of previous big games. So I think it worked well for them. And I think even though they came in as targets, there were so many great players in this season that, I think it worked well for them. And honestly, seeing Adam go out was sad. Like he was such an icon, especially at the end with the moves and the shot. Like it was epically great. It was hard to see him go.
And what's been fascinating about following Adam is Adam's longevity in the game just was probably one of the best things that could happen for Jordan, to be honest.
Oh yes, for sure. For sure. Like just having that massive shield. Oh, hi, Keenan. Having that massive shield of Adam just like really helped Jordan, I feel.
Yeah, because I think the shield with Adam that like helped give Jordan the means of ousting both Griffin and Dallas.
Yes,
possibly prematurely for everyone else.
Yeah, for sure. I think the Dallas and Griffin vote outs, especially for Jordan's case in the end, was key.
Yeah, because I was like, man, like there's a very big world where it's a Griffin, Dallas, Rosie Hannah Final Four, right?
100%. And 100%.
So I was very fast at the fact that Jordan nipped that in the butt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And speaking of Jordan, Jordan wins this immunity, Jordan's first immunity win of their Survivor Bloomington career.
Great timing. Absolutely great timing. And this is one of those moments that who knows
Yeah.
what would have happened. But I also feel like getting that immunity win under their belt just helped so much.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't really I only won one immunity challenge at Reelfoot.
Mm-hmm.
But there was something about knowing that I at least secured that one victory, which I'm sure mattered to them also.
I have to go check to see. I'm trying to remember which one you won. Mm-hmm.
The
Okay,
final four.
you won the final four, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty big win in winning.
Yeah, I saved it all for the end, I guess.
I mean, and so I don't. Given what we know about Rosie, Megan, and Jordan together, Jordan losing this to Megan, it makes me feel like Jordan wouldn't have been in trouble here anyways.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Because I am a very biased Hannah fan, and I was just thinking like, man, Hannah was not able to make her move at Final 7, was not make a move at Final 6. It's like, does Hannah need to bite the bullet and vote for Jordan at Final 5? And this crushed that potential.
Yes, it did. Yeah. Also a huge Hannah fan.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think if Megan won the Final 5 challenge, I don't think it would have changed the course of anything.
Yeah, if Adam won, I wonder then if they move the cut Hannah. I don't know. Like, as Adam's likely targeting Megan, Hannah's likely targeting Megan. I think it's then up to Rosie of like, do I would rather sit with Hannah might have gone at Final 5 had Adam won.
Yeah. Who knows?
So the strategy in this time is to kind of cut and dry, because is it Megan or is it Adam, right? And we see very clearly people are like, no, Adam needs to go, which is understandable. I think, which I think it would be hard to sit next to a former winner who's had such a crazy adversarial experience like Adam has in this game.
I think the things that not only did Adam come in as a previous winner, which is always kind of hard to get to the end, because people are fearful of that, but then to throw in his story and all the crazy things that happened, he's the obvious choice.
Yeah.
It was kind of a combination of everything. I think that kind of, and the 8 ball was perfect. That was great.
I mean, I spent a lot of the season like, why we keep seeing pictures of the 8 ball. What does it mean? What is it all leading up to? It gets Adam's safety, but it's the one thing it isn't is it's not a hidden muted idol. So I appreciated that arc. Like we mentioned before, this is really, I guess for me, when I really first saw the Megan, Rosie, Jordan being this locked in trio, where I don't really feel like I got as firm a sense of that before now. And then, that tribal council, Adam tries to sow a little chaos, but Magic 8 Ball says Alec isn't good.
Which was so good. So appropriate. And like, it's the little moments for me. Like, I liked when he leaned over to Megan and he apologized for voting for her. Like, it was just, the music was good. I liked that whole end of that final tribal. It was good.
One thing I really enjoy is how like players have their theme songs, and like you don't really get the theme. I think Adam and Mia are the two players. Like Mia has a set theme for her, and this is Adam's tribal council music thing. I just posted in the chat. It's called Fire and Thunder by CJ Beards, and man, I've just been loving the song all week long. That was a fantastic music tribal council piece, and it provides so much great tension for like, does he have one last thing? Did he find an idol? What's he gonna do?
I love it so much. I just love it. I also, let's not overlook Hannah's face when Adam finally gets voted out.
I mean, I wish I've been keeping track of how many times Hannah has voted for Adam. Is it 4 times? Is it 5? It's
something crazy.
Yeah. But there's just this look of like relief and happiness when Adam gets voted out on her face in that scene.
It was a good it was like a good contrast because the music was like emotional and it was very well done. And then Hannah just looks so happy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I don't blame her.
And I guess one of the things I wish we saw more interactions of Hannah and Adam, just
I
because
agree.
like I have to imagine those were just like strange interactions where neither of them are believing that single thing the other person says. So they know they're just gunning for
And
each
they're
other.
aware. They know. Yeah, that's awkward, by the way. Aren't those like the most uncomfortable conversations? Because you have to talk to people.
Yeah,
You
you play
can't
nice.
not talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
But oh, they're exhausting when you just know that there's really nothing behind those talks.
So, what could Adam have done to make it to the end? Is there anything that he could have done to change his game?
I really don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I really do, I really don't. I don't think so. I think Rosie said in his final tribal, I think to Adam, if I'm correct, he said something about how Adam's social game was lacking.
I mean, a lot of how social game was lacking.
Right? So, like, unless he can really change
Mm-hmm.
that completely, I just don't think the way that the season played out, him coming in as a previous winner, I don't think he stood a chance of making it to the end.
Yeah, I think Adam and Megan are the two players who went really far with like were felt just very limited on their mobility and what they could do in the game.
I agree.
And specifically, both their games really were resting on Jordan's in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So this takes us to the Final Four, and the Final Four is brought to you by Beethoven, because we have a lot of Beethoven pieces kind of narrating the course of this round. So we had Moonlight Sonata, and I think Fur Elise, and Fur Elise as well. What were your thoughts on the music choices for this?
Oh, I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for the theatrics. I love it. I think the editing of this was just, I enjoyed everything about the finale episode. The music, the mute moments, like in the challenge where there was no noise. I found it very powerful. I also just like the artistic twist of it. So I'm a fan. And I like classical music. I listen to it when I sleep. So
it felt fitting given how the Final Four Tribal Council ends up being this very emotional moment. I mean, especially when you go so far in a game and you're just like, I am there, but I'm not. I guess I'll say this. I mean, walking into your Final Four Tribal Council, can you survive? What was going through your head?
I was devastated.
You knew what was happening.
Yeah, so I think that's part of when I watched this episode, I'm not a highly emotional person outwardly. I think I'm very emotional. It's just usually kept inside. And I definitely teared up because I have been there and I remember that feeling so well of just knowing that it was you and there was nothing you could do about it. I also really respected that Hannah kept fighting, and she said that that was part of her burden coming into this game is that survival challenge. She really felt like she quit and she gave up and she didn't fight for it. And I think she had a she fought her ass off on this one. And I think she walked away from this game feeling a lot differently because of that. I also, walking into Final Four, knowing that you come so close, I had also kind of given up. I didn't fight. I was told it's not you, we're not bringing you. And I was like, okay, let's just get this over with. And that's a terrible feeling to carry on with you after the game because you want to do everything possible until that very last moment.
Yeah.
So I thought Hannah did a great job. She gave it everything she could, even at Final Tribal. Yeah. So
let's talk a bit about this Final Four Immunity Challenge, because one of the interesting things about us watching this is that while this is the 5th season of the game, it's the first time it's been really viewers are allowed to see the game. And so there's certain aspects that we're learning. One of the aspects is the Final Four Challenge is the same challenge across every season.
Right.
And so we, as a result of that, Megan is the only player of the 4 who has done the challenge before.
Yes.
In fact, Megan has history of this challenge. Megan was voted out 4th in her season after losing the challenge because she didn't have the puzzle flushed together.
Right. In all honesty, I am not a fan of that, especially in a returner season. And I think, it resonated when Hannah was talking. She was like, I just feel like it's not fair. Like,
Yeah.
she already won this puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And but that is part of these games. Like, we're not privy to how they're set up. We're not
Yeah.
privy to the layout of the game, which is done way before players ever take that field.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no way of knowing who was going to be at the very end to be able to do that puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, if you've already done a puzzle, doing it a second time is usually a cakewalk, right? You're more familiar. I'm sure she never stopped thinking about that puzzle
Mm-hmm.
after she lost her previous season. So, I mean, obviously the balances were super in favor of Megan, and being at final four, that's just like such a big challenge. So I get it.
And so learning that this puzzle was one that had been done by anyone who's made the final trial before. Maybe
Right.
wonder if was that why there's an expedited target in Adam, because you're like, we can't get him there? Or
I'd be
maybe
really curious to know if that was ever a conversation. Like, if we knew that that was part of the end game, because it definitely would have factored into my vote if I was out there. I would not want to be sitting at the end with anybody that had even looked at that puzzle.
Yep.
Especially somebody like Megan, who's already good at puzzles. I wouldn't let her get anywhere close. So I would love to know if that ever came out.
Yeah, and so this puzzle is a Survivor logo puzzle. The hard part seems to be the edges, not knowing kind of like in the space between the edge and the logo itself where things fit. And Megan doesn't really have much of a challenge with this.
No.
It solves at twice the speed of anyone else.
Yeah,
And
pretty readily.
It was cool for Megan to have this moment of redemption in a sense. Like, I've been haunted by this, I've lost it, now I've come and I crushed it and I needed it, because Megan likely felt like there's a high likelihood I get voted out at this round.
Right. And I think it wouldn't have, I don't think it would have bothered me as much if it was done at like the merge challenge or pretty early on. It being at final four just carried the heaviest blow to everybody else there. And I mean, obviously, especially Hannah, because I think she felt like she didn't have a fighting chance because of it.
And I think I'd be curious to talk to Hannah to see, when does Hannah pick up that, oh no, Rosie, Jordan, and Megan are a thing, and I can't break that. And I get a sense for Hannah, it doesn't sink in until this round that this is a thing.
Yeah.
And one of the things, like, for Hannah's game, we hear her final three of like, I want Griffin, I want Rosie, but we don't get to see her talking to Rosie, say, hey, you and me, we need to stick together. We don't really get to see a lot of that. And I'd be curious to hear, how, where Hannah was moving to try to get her final three to happen.
Right. And I think those conversations, especially in the later part of the game, it does carry your words carry so much weight. If somebody looks me in the eye and they said me and you to the end, no matter what, that carries more weight than people that are just like, let's keep working together.
Yay.
Yeah. So you need to hear certain words out there for reassurance that you are tight. And I don't recall those conversations ever happening with that group of people. So yeah. And again, cameras only catch so much. So maybe they did, but.
Well, like you mentioned before, Hannah puts in a lot of legwork here, but I quickly realized that her words are falling on deaf ears, where both Rosie and Megan are not responsive to any possibility of targeting Jordan. And Hannah is really like, oh,
shit,
it's me.
Yes. Yeah. And I think you're right. I don't, because she might have even said it, but I don't think she realized how tight those three were. I think she thought there was an argument to be made there and they would at least listen. And it was pretty obvious in the episode that they weren't really.
And I was really surprised that neither were willing to take a pot shot at Jordan. Now, given that it's an all-star season, these people know each other, are friends with each other, right? There's a lot more layers to unpack, right? We saw in Winners at War where players at the end like were really close, and like we saw Ben Drivergen fall on his sword, and we see Megan saying like, I'm okay going
Yes.
to end with Jordan because I'm okay losing to Jordan.
Yes. I wish, and even though I understand that, I understand the concept of being okay losing to somebody because you care about them as a person and outside of the game. Understood. For an all-star season, though, you want a tie. You want a fire. You want to force that kind of earning getting to the end. And I wish it had happened. I understand why it didn't.
I was so sad that Rosie at the time was not willing to take a pot shot at Jordan.
I know. I don't even understand why.
And I think it's props to Jordan for getting to Rosie, or like getting the Rosie on that swap tribe. I think it was really like the final 11 or so. It was like, wow, Jordan's really close to that Braun contingent,
Right.
and that ended up being one of the most valuable connections Jordan made, so Jordan can play off. I have my original Braun over here, and then I have kind of my Megan Brains lines over here, and I can like be in both worlds.
Yeah. And I can't wait to hear what they say, because I also can't wait to hear, like, did Rosie contemplate that?
Mm-hmm.
Was there a thought process there and just didn't see it being worth it in the end?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
So tribal council starts. We have the moonlight sun in the background, and players look like they're attending a funeral.
Oh, bad.
I
Very sad. Very
mean, even when Megan, like they have that opening confession after the challenge, right, where we kind of get to see the little behind the scenes.
Right.
Megan just looks grim. There's no smiling. There's not. Megan's just like, she
Yeah.
just kind of looks like, I am over it.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a definite like facial expressive somberness that just carried right into tribal, and Hannah was very emotional, as she should have been.
Yeah.
And I think even in that moment, like she said, she was like 99% sure it was her, but there was still that 1%
That Adam Luck.
just still trying. And it was, I think, the other, like Megan and Jordan and Rosie's responses to it were solid and grounded. I think that's when Megan said, no matter what, like, my loyalties are my own. It's not dictated by other people and their loyalties. So she kind of like stood up, kind of validating why it was going to be Hannah.
I really appreciated her argument of like, you are an unknown.
Yeah.
I have seen and I know what to expect in final trial against these two people. I don't know what to expect against you. And for me,
Yeah.
that's dangerous. And that actually I like a lot as an argument, saying like, you are a risk and I'm not taking that risk. And that I'd be like, that's fair. Like I can't complain if someone says that to me.
No, and I think that's part of the confidence that you have to go into final tribal with too. If you know that you're going into final tribal with good game players, that's great, as long as you feel you can articulate your own game better than they can.
Yep.
And I think part of that is knowing their game. You can't have surprises at final tribal. And I think where Hannah hid her game so much, they were terrified of it. Like, ooh, I don't know who you're close with. I don't know what you told people or the moves that you made. And Hannah did a great job this season. So
I mean, I think in any non-All-Star world, Hannah is with these four and gets the final three. But in this All-Star world, given these players all play from the same season and have that bond together, right, that she can't break through, that doesn't let her through. And so what do you think Hannah could have done differently this season to help change things so she's sitting at the end here?
it's so hard, because I think the three of them specifically did a really great job of downplaying their connection. But at the same time, were people aware of that? Like, that would have been something in my brain. Usually in all-star season, you go, okay, who played together, who was on the same season, and you track that. And you want to keep an eye on that. So like, how if Hannah had gotten,
and since Hannah has not played previous seasons, and like likely this has been somewhat told, but like, and I think that Megan Jordan is very obvious, but the Rosie Jordan, like, it's like think you maybe don't see it as much because you don't. I feel it's more in the other players a little more than her.
I do too. I think that Hannah played a great game. She took timing, like her timing in this game was fantastic between swinging between different groups, and working with different people and being open to that along the way. I feel like the only way Hannah makes it to the end is dictated by other people, not necessarily herself.
So I think two things. I think it's really easy to get caught up in a Survivor and be really fixated on doing things at certain times.
Right.
So in Reelfoot, when I had the idol and the idol expired at 6, I'm sitting at final 7 and I'm like, I'm not playing it because I want to play at final 6 at the last possible moment, even though I knew I was getting at least 2 to 3 votes that tribal council.
Right.
I get voted out with it because I'm stupid. I think for Hannah, she comes in and she's like, seventh, the final 7. That's
Final
round.
7.
That's when I make my move, and I think this season may have gone differently had Hannah took a swing at final 9 or 8.
Like earlier.
Which is how can I is such a minor fault because it's that's a lot riskier at 9 and 8 to be making a move like that. But I think as we saw by final 7, Jordan had things locked up. It was too late.
Yes. And that happens. It happens in almost every game. It happened in my Can You Survive season. It happened in my Reelfoot season where people after the game were like, I was coming after you that next round. It's like, it's whoever takes the shot first.
Yeah.
You've got to be first off the gun and you can't be too early. But if you wait too long, if you're set on a certain number, I think you're kind of clouded by what's actually happening right now. So I think being open to those possibilities, even if you think it's a round too soon, might pay off.
I think the other thing, I think Hannah would have benefited had she tried to be an ally with Adam.
Yeah.
I think Hannah's focusing like once Adam goes, I can do my thing. Then Adam just doesn't keep going.
Too late. Yeah. No, so, I agree with that.
And so I wonder if there's some universe where Adam and Hannah could have come together and make things work. And does Hannah want to sit next to Adam at the end? Unlikely, no. I don't think I'd ever want to sit next to Adam at the end when he's coming in hot like he did this season. No. But I think he could have been a useful ally to scoop up.
He could have been, or what if Adam had gone earlier? Like maybe that would have changed it up completely.
Yeah, if Adam goes instead of Megan at final 11, right? Or like I think maybe there's some world where let's say Stacy and Boogie were able to slip past 10 and 9, and I think that gives, I don't know who goes out, but I think that gives Hannah more room to play with.
Oh, for sure. I think. Yeah. So, I know Hannah and Boogie were pretty tight in the game. She had told me when she wasn't really giving me details about the game because it hadn't come out yet. She said, never in a world did I ever think that I would line with somebody that was so drastically different from myself. So I think she had a lot of faith in that relationship. And if Stacy and Boogie had kind of found themselves later in the game, I think that would have been fantastic for Hannah's game.
Yeah. I mean, don't make this seem like I'm only critiquing Hannah's game. Like I want to end by saying Hannah played phenomenally. Hannah had if you had to put the person, say who played the best pre-merge, I'm going to say it's Hannah played the best pre-merge.
Yeah. She was so much fun to watch. Yeah. I knew her personally before I've ever seen her play a game because I've actually haven't watched Survival Challenge.
I haven't watched my season either. What do you know?
But to see her out there and her take and her conversations with people and how she played a great game. I love Hannah's game.
Yeah. Well, with Hannah voted out, this leaves us to our final 3. And I appreciate it with the editing that we kind of get a cross of jury speaks and what are players thinking as we lead into, final tribal council. Was there anything notable from here for you?
Not totally, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. Not really.
I guess
Damn
all I
it.
can like I just remember Mia just be like, I'm voting Jordan, and then she's like, wait, I need to
Oh
pretend like
yeah.
I'm not quite sure who I'm voting for yet. I need to think hard and be open, but it's just kind of like Mia's just like, yeah, I'm voting Jordan. You're like, yeah, that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I love it. And I'm always so curious. I'm always so curious because it's a stereotypical line opening at Final Tribal. Our minds are not made up.
Mm-hmm.
Are they though? Because I'm pretty sure there were a lot of people that did walk in knowing exactly where they wanted their vote to go. And I think that's how it is in a lot of tribals. I think there
Mm-hmm.
are people that are very open or torn, maybe between people, especially when there's three sitting at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for some reason, I'm always like, ugh, which is funny because then that take on me, I was dying laughing. That was hilarious.
I think the other one I want to talk about is Stacy's
Oh
viewpoint, where Stacy personally finds that final four tribal council, where it's very much reveals to the jury if they didn't know that Megan, Jordan, and Rosie are in lockstep and have been in lockstep for a while because of that season relationship, and for Stacy, she's just like, I am not rewarding that.
right.
And
Right.
what were your thoughts on that?
Well, again, I just feel like you can't predict how people are going to take
Mm-hmm.
information that they didn't know about in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Some people find out about an alliance or a group of people and they commend them like, "Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
had no idea." And some people are very hurt by that.
Mm-hmm.
Um and you don't know how people are going to take that. And you don't know how that's going to influence their vote or, if the game's still going on, how that's going to influence the rest of the game. And that's why I love Final Tribal so much because all comes out and people have such a different take on it. You could take
Mm-hmm.
the same situation and I'm going to feel a way differently than somebody
Yeah.
else. I think with the opening speeches alone,
Mm-hmm.
I would have been not interacting in the game, but just on Final Tribal and the previous Final Tribal, I would have been a locked vote for Megan.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that she spoke and the things that she touched on would
Mm-hmm.
have been very hard to get me off of
Mm-hmm.
voting for her because I just think, but somebody could feel totally differently.
Yeah. So your season, there was some conflict between Casey and Storm, and
A little bit, of
just a little bit, and that comes out in Final Tribal
that
Council, and
was
probably was unexpected for you, right?
so unexpected,
Mm-hmm.
so unexpected.
And
Um,
and it
Storm
wasn't,
was shocked, but I was also very shocked.
and you weren't and you were not part of that. So you were just, which is, you're probably, thank goodness that I'm not being wrapped up in this in Final Tribal Council, but it's still like you just don't know what the jury is thinking, and like where like there's tensions and angers have been simmering potentially.
No, you have no idea. And again, you're depleted in all areas.
Mm-hmm.
You're not sleeping and you're starving and you're emotionally just drained and you're trying to keep everything straight too,
Mm-hmm.
because it's very hard. This is an intense game over a short amount of time and there's a lot of details and you're trying
Mm-hmm.
to keep it all straight because you also don't want to contradict
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And then somebody comes at you and with some anger, or resentment, or
Mm-hmm.
a situation that they are very unhappy about, and it's very
Mm-hmm.
off-putting. I know Storm was completely thrown
Mm-hmm.
during our final tribal. So, I mean, I was a bystander, and it benefited me
Mm-hmm.
because Casey voted for me.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
but being out there on the receiving end of it, it's so uncomfortable and it's hard to navigate that conversation because the person asking, the jury member, has
Mm-hmm.
been sitting in it for a while.
Yeah.
They've thought about it. They have a lot of emotions, and if you're caught off guard by it, I just feel like it's
Mm-hmm.
difficult to navigate.
And you've never gone back and watched season 2 of Reelfoot on YouTube, right?
No.
Do you know anything about that season?
Do you want to know a secret? I've never watched my season of Reelfoot.
Okay, to be honest, like I don't think the live streams are worth going back through because you've played through it yourself.
I'm
Edited
also
episodes are a little different.
okay. Yeah. No, I have not.
Yeah. So in that season, it's, I can't remember, 16 or 18 players went out, but there is a dating couple. Starting different tribes, the final two ends up being that couple. The jury is not happy about this.
Oh,
And so Stacy's has a huge experience at games, right?
yeah.
And so
Oh, yeah.
but Stacy's been in situations where the final tribal there has been a preseason relationship that has defined the game, and players like, oh. And second of all, like Stacy, I think, which I always admire, really prides herself on finding new players and working new players, and not relying on old bonds to move through games.
Love
And
that.
knowing that that's a philosophy that Stacy really holds to, I can see why she looks at it as like, yeah, no, I don't. That's not how I play.
Right. And I think that's part of it. That, in all honesty, being Megan and Jordan, there's nothing they could have done about that.
Yeah.
You can't right that wrong.
Yeah.
There's no way she was ever going to vote for either one of them because of that, and they have no control over it. So that's kind of on Stacy and Stacy's experience in the past. And I mean, I get it, but she's also played so many games that I don't know, because we all come in with the people that we do or do not want to work with, are things that we don't want to see in a game, and coming in having two people sit at the end that have a connection, that had each other the entire game as, I hate saying a crutch, but as a support person, I get it.
Valencia has a question of, do players usually watch back their games? And I think, as Angela's saying, that for you, the answer is no.
No, 100% no.
I've done a little. I got through the first 6 or 7 episodes of Survival Challenge and stopped before I got voted out. I've just never been able to see grit watching that happen to me. I have watched almost all of my Survivor BC except for the finale. I've been procrastinating that as well.
Yeah.
But live stream, I don't want to go watch people's comments on my game. I'm just like, I don't need that in my mental health.
Yeah. I think a lot of people like to watch it. They like to see what was happening. Most people I know rewatch even the live streams and stuff.
Wow.
I just, nah, I'm good. You think as a winner specifically that I would be excited and happy, but some of those moments are really hard. And I know that I was really struggling with decisions, and I'd rather not see it play back. So yeah.
So
it's a good question.
Do you want to talk more about the opening speeches at all, or do you want to kind of talk about some of the jury questions?
Let's do jury questions. I kind of talked about the opening speeches earlier.
So Stacy's question, which I was like, close your eyes and raise your hand as I ask and for which players you think will get your votes. Yeah. Did you have to do a question like this in your Final Tribal Council?
Yeah.
How did that go for you, Phil?
I can't remember who asked it. I think that it is very strategic when you're going to put your hand in the air, being at Final Tribal, because if you raise your hand for everybody, you look super cocky and arrogant. And if you don't raise your hand for anybody, people are like, "Oh, I thought we were tight." So I think even responding to that question has to be extremely strategic. I remember raising my hand for the people that I knew for sure, and it was only like maybe 2 or 3 people.
Yeah. I mean, when we think
I
about
love this question too, by the
way. I mean, there are some very pointed jury questions out there. I think the question I dread ever having to answer is like, which of the jury members don't deserve to be here? And you're just like,
also got that question at
Real.
Terrible.
And you're just like, wow, you're basically telling me to go make it enemy right now.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah.
And I think like, wasn't your seeing someone like it was like, James or Keenan, because like they were voted out so much pre the merge, and that was kind of a safest answer.
Yeah. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. Somebody's probably going to comment and tell me I'm wrong.
Reelfoot super fans unite.
I think all 3 of us picked the first person on jury, who is James.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I think we all picked him, and then we all picked somebody different. I almost think I picked KC, and he voted for me to win with 2 votes.
So it worked.
Oh gosh. But I think that's a very, very loaded question. I hate that's the worst question.
Yeah.
There's no worse question than that one.
And we didn't get that, but so this is probably, I think, of all the questions, probably the most loaded. I think everything else was specifically to a player or more generalized, which I appreciate because
Thank you.
I dislike trial counselors are hard for me having. Yeah, it's just hard for me just how raw it is to kind of grit through.
Yeah. No, this is honestly Stacey's question is probably my favorite. Just because it's the same question for everybody, and it gives the jury insight to how the players feel about themselves. So yeah, and I love that it was the first question.
So Hannah has the second question, and I don't know if maybe we only get to see what she's asking Megan.
Right.
So I don't know if she asked more than this, which is like, Megan, in your jury speech, you mentioned that you gunned for and took out people that came for you. Who was that? And Megan answers specifically focusing on James and Alyssa from her original tribe who went out in the swap.
Right.
What was your thought on this answer?
I didn't like it. I think she did it was a specific example, which I appreciate, because I think sometimes when you're asked a question, people lead with a very vague answer. So I like that she cited something. I wish, but I don't know what she would have said, I guess.
Yeah, I think in terms of evidence, I like the fact she specific moments with Mia, right? In the giving information to realizing they were not beneficial for game long term. This always opens the question, even like, should jury care only about merge or pre-merge as well?
Right.
And I think you always want to lean towards a merge answer because that's when there was everyone when the game really gets hard and it's more visible. But so like I wish, I don't know what else Megan could answer, but I wish it had been more specific to the merge, saying, yes, I wanted you out, Hannah, or yes, I wanted you out, like, I don't know, Mia, or it's hard to say.
Yeah, completely agree. I wish it was a different example, but I don't know what it would have been. And I think I'm trying to word this better. I feel like jury is a very selfish atmosphere. They want to hear about themselves. They want to hear why they were important, or why you got them out, or why they were targeted, and they want to feel like an important part of that process. And I feel like that was a missed opportunity for her to make one of those jury members feel more committed to her.
At the end of the day, we as the jury want to be part of the story, right? We're looking for a winner. We want our game to be reflected in the winner. We want to be part of the winner.
Yeah, 100%. But I do think that was a good example for her. It just didn't capitalize on the audience.
Now, Boogie's question is interesting. He asks, Rosie, who's my boy? Rose says, you are. And Boogie's like, that's all I got.
Love it.
I didn't realize, because we heard from him in like kind of the jury speak section, he was favorable to Rosie. I didn't realize he was like slam dunk. And maybe it was
not either.
And maybe it was Rosie saying, I wanted to play like Boogie. I wanted to emulate the winner of my season. That really sold it for him. I don't know.
Maybe. I also was very surprised.
If Boogie was so pro Rosie, I wish he had given a softball question for Rosie to really shine with.
Right.
One of the things I regret from Reelfoot is I voted for the loser of the season. And I wish I had given that player a better question to answer and really shine, to really kind of showcase their game. Right. Would it make a difference? Unlikely. But I wish, had I known, like, I really want this player to win, that I had set them up better.
So funny. Can You Survive? When I went out and then literally 15 minutes later was Final Tribal. And I tried to do that. I knew where my vote was going to be, and I knew it was going to be for somebody that didn't have the majority of the votes. And I tried so hard to do that, to really elevate him, to be able to brag about his strengths in this game. But it was like a 2-5 vote, so I didn't succeed. But I tried.
And I wish I sometimes regret that I hadn't taken a swing like you did.
Yeah, I think Boogie had an opportunity to maybe let Rosie kind of come through a little bit more, but Yeah. Who's my boy? I don't know.
So Dallas's question, I guess it has a little edge of it. It's like,
Yeah.
why you deserve the win and not your competitors?
Yes.
And I need to check my notes. I don't recall there being anything like super stand out on what they said.
Not really. I liked Rosie's.
Mm-hmm.
Rosie's approach was, I got here by myself. I didn't have a crutch. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was a really good answer.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Megan and Jordan try to combat that a little bit. But I thought that was probably one of the best answers that Rosie could have said. And maybe a little bit more about the moves that he made specifically, not including them, would have been helpful if he had kind of carried on that theme of, I didn't have them and I also did this by myself.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like because like you can kind of see him playing off like those two are similar package deal. I'm the unique player of the three. If you really want to see a game that shine, look at mine. I kind of liked how he was kind of couching himself on that. And then Jordan goes second, and Megan's like, I guess some of the others have the coin of Jordan.
Yeah.
Megan had a hard time with that one.
Yeah, for sure.
Mia's question, I'm not quite sure what the question is.
Still. I don't either.
We get some players talking fondly of Mia, and
yeah, it was like Jordan just telling Mia she was blindsided, had no idea she was going.
And I think Rosie says that was me.
Yeah.
Then we get to, so I think there's two conflict points. The first was Adam.
Mm-hmm.
So Adam steps up and says, Rosie, I told you if you ever voted me out, I'm going to spoil Stranger Things for you. All right. And he kind of gives Rosie warnings like, you need to step it up because you are not being favored right now by the jury. And then he asks the question of like, how would you beat me if you're sitting with me at the end? And we only hear Rosie's answer. Likely, maybe the other two answered and just wasn't part of the final footage.
Right.
What did you think of Rosie's response of how Rosie would beat Adam at the end?
I feel like I didn't hate his answer. So Rosie essentially says, Adam, you had no social game. I had a social game. If I was sitting at the end, that's what would like propel me to win over you. Which is probably accurate and true.
Mm-hmm.
Not that he would necessarily win, but that Adam's social game was a little bit lacking. And Rosie did excel there. But that's all Rosie seemed to capitalize on was this social game. He said it in his opening speech. He said it here. He says it in closing. So really outside of the social game, I would have been really curious to hear what else. Like, what else did you bring? What move, what connections, like a specific example of where a vote was going somewhere. And because you were so social, you influenced this vote rather than just saying, I'm more social than you.
So kind of more details or receipts.
Yeah.
For me, I would have couched it in nicer terms. Like if all Rose is like you suck, I'm just like, oh, I don't know.
I didn't know if maybe he thought Adam wanted to hear that.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's why his delivery was so curt because I feel like he like maybe Adam wanted to hear that.
And maybe it's just like how we like. Maybe it's just like individual personalities. I would have been much kinder to say, like I would recognize that you played a game where you were targeting, had items and advantages. And I would pitch myself as saying that as a person that you brought you here, right? When you were vulnerable, I was there. I was there ensuring the votes wasn't on you and that you were here at my whim or something like that. I don't know.
And it might have not won Adam over, but again, maybe it would have won somebody else over. You know what I mean? You don't know. So yeah, it was a missed opportunity for Rosie. I think he could have really done something with that question.
Griffin asked for when players were the most ruthless.
Yeah.
Like when you voted out your friends.
Right.
What did you think of the answers players gave for this?
I really want to know, based on their answers, like Rosie says the Adam vote. I don't think that was ruthless.
I think Rosie says Mia, right?
Oh, does he?
Yeah, I think I have my notes that he says like getting Mia out of the way so I could be with Jordan.
I thought he said Adam. Megan said voting out Dallas.
I was not a fan of that.
No. And Jordan said that her most ruthless moment was almost going to rocks or trying to force a tie vote.
I think so. That was like, hold on, I need to check my notes for that tribal council. So that was the tribal council that I think Stacy goes out.
Yeah.
It's like the double vote, right? Meg goes out first, and it looks like it's looking to be a tie between Rosie and Hannah, and I think Jordan pushes for Stacy and
Right.
gets Stacy out.
Right. That's probably the best answer out of this question.
Yeah.
And I don't know, again, you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, but like, was there more ruthless moments, or was this just not a ruthless, like cutthroaty type of season that they didn't have anything else to really pull from,
I think that Jordan could have pitched Dallas or Griffin as being the most ruthless players that were probably benignly ready to take me deep in the game, but I knew at my heart they were not going to sit with the end, and taking them out opened up spots for me.
I think putting that spin on it, but at the same time, being devil's advocate, that is a great answer, but how is that going to come back? So you say that and you put a spin on it because it answers the question. It sounds very ruthless, but then how does everybody else take that answer?
Yeah.
And she could have pulled from that whole sniper reference and kind of given that spin on it to make it a little bit more dramatic. But I don't know if these were just safe answers. Like, I don't want to seem ruthless, so I'm going to say this like super kind, not mean thing. I don't know.
So Megan Wolf then asks, like, how do you represent Brains, Brawn, Beauty?
Yeah.
Right. And again, these answers, I think Jordan and Megan's were kind of straightforward. Right. Jordan's like, hey, I played a social game. Megan's like, I played a strategic game. Rose is like, I played also a social game.
Yeah, Rosie was like, I'm more of a beauty than a brawn. And
I feel like this was a missed opportunity for them to say, like, I was the most beautiful of the bronze, and that's why I'm here. Like, I was able to evidence the strength to get me through the challenges I need to, then bring on hidden reserves no one expected because of my label.
Yeah, I think it was and again, like I hate critiquing this because when you're out there, it is so hard to like think clearly and think originally and genuinely.
Under pressure, you have like 30 seconds.
It's so hard. It's so much harder. But they were very like Megan, why do you identify with the brain tribe? And she's like, oh, I'm strategic and I won challenges and I won puzzles. And it's like, give us more. Like, really like look more into the question or give an example of something. It's just the specificity, I think, that I was missing so much on some of these questions.
And then we get to our Devontae asking the last question. This is kind of the second flashpoint of Trial of Council. This time it's between Jordan and Devontae.
Yeah, and I won't lie, I love that there was some emotion. I don't like animosity, but I like there being some emotion at Final Tribal because it's emotional. And whether it's conveyed or not, a lot of the players have that. So I'm glad the Devontae thing happened and it went back and forth for a while. And I'm glad it was aired in this episode. And I also love this question. I love it. I think vulnerability is a big part of these games. It was also asked at in my Final Tribal. So I think it's a recurring theme in a lot of games. I think Jordan's eventual answer, which was surrounded by the Devontae mutinying. I don't know what that is. Was valid. I think that was probably a very vulnerable moment for her. But there was so much back and forth that I wish I kind of heard a little bit.
Well, it was hard because it was like Jordan wasn't really answering the question because Jordan had to defend against Devontae being like, why did you vote me out? How dare you?
Right? It was like the circle.
Right. And like both of them, I felt were just kind of talking over each other. And so it's just like, oh, this isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think Jordan had good points to like, here are the three things that led me to think that I need you out of my game.
Yes.
All right. And so.
Yeah, I did. And honestly, I appreciated that. It was like, I didn't trust you any longer because of this, this, and this. And they were very specific things. But the problem is sometimes when you argue with a jury member, it can come back. So,
and I don't know where Devontae was leaning beforehand, but I mean, spoiler: Devontae votes for Megan, and I think this likely contributed to it.
I do too. Did they show Rosie's answer to this question?
Nope.
Okay.
So, is there anything else we want to talk about? Just kind of the jury questions or answers, or anything that stood out for you from the closing speeches?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So one thing I really liked here with the votes and how the votes are read is how we got them interspersed, the players voting and their voting official. That I loved.
Gold. It was gold. I loved that.
I was like, I want this on the CBS Survivor when they're doing the votes, showing each person 100%. Saying like, "I love you," or "You're amazing," or "You played the game I wanted to play." Like, I that was wildly great for me.
Loved that. I was surprised, but instantly I was like, I want to see this every time. As a viewer, it was so great to hear what people were saying as they were voting, and the way that the votes were read I thought that was really well done.
So yeah, so we first get the first vote for Megan. Devontae was like, "You evolved your game."
Yeah.
Then we get a Jordan vote, where Megan's like, "I'm a little unsure, but I respect your game."
Yeah.
Stacy votes for Rosie. You had an uphill battle, and then we get the second Rosie vote where Boogie's like, "You're my boy." And at that point, I'm just like, "Oh wow, could I be really wrong about this season?" Mia votes for Jordan.
Shocker.
Yeah, which we're not surprised. No. Dallas votes for Megan, saying, like, "I'm so proud of you. You're an inspiration. You found deserve it." And we're like 2-2-2.
Yeah.
Right. And then kind of the Jordan steamroll begins, where Griffin votes for you, says you're ruthless and running it. And we get a montage of Jordan to the game. Yeah. Adam votes for Jordan, saying, "You voted me out. I respect that." And then Hannah says, like, the person who owned their game, you owned your game, and you played how I wanted to play.
Yeah. Oh, it was so good. It was so well done. I also, to be fair, I would have been upset if every person didn't get a vote.
Always.
You know, as corny as it sounds, they deserve it. And I'm really glad Rosie and Megan both got at least a couple of votes, because I think they both did play a very great game. And I'm not convinced Final Tribal could have been totally swayed in another direction, pending questions being answered differently, because I think Jordan really did a great job in the game itself, and that carried her into Final Tribal being able to answer questions. But the way that the votes were read and the way that the Jordan stack at the end, it was just it was very theatrical, and it was really fun to watch.
So, like, looking at Rosie and looking at Megan, what could have been a path to victory here?
Honestly, I think Jordan, I think having Jordan at the end is tricky for almost any player. I don't think anybody could have beaten her in the end. You never know that. We always like to play the what if game. You know, I get together with
what if you taken Lauren to the end with you? Who would have won?
You still do that. I just got back from a weekend with James and Lauren and Storm, and that's a huge part of our conversation. Like, would this have gone differently if this person had been there? And everybody's like, "Oh yes, absolutely." You don't know that. I'm convinced you don't know who would actually vote for who, how Final Tribal would go. So you can mix up the people and players and think about it and have these theories, but I feel like you don't actually know how it's going to shake out. I think Rosie would have had a really difficult time winning this season, just because of the other heavy hitters that did make it deep into the game. I think Hannah, there's definitely an avenue where Hannah could have been sitting at the end and one, depending on who she was there with, but I think if she was sitting against Megan, I'd be really interested to see if
Yeah,
it could win in that kind of scenario.
because the biggest delineator is like Jordan goes final four, Hannah walks, Hannah's in final three. Jordan's probably voting for Megan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Hannah gets Stacy's vote. I think Hannah like has a chance to get maybe Boogie's vote as well.
I was just
Maybe
gonna
not,
ask
though.
that. Like, who does Boogie vote? I think he'd vote Hannah over Rosie.
Maybe. I think that Griffin has a high shot of voting for Hannah. And so I think Hannah, I can see her taking second place. I think her beating Megan would be very challenging.
Yes.
But like, who knows?
Who knows? It's
Like,
the fun game we all like to play after.
Yeah, I mean, it could be something like a 5-3-1, right? For Megan at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, if you take Jordan and put her on jury and put Hannah in, it does kind of redistribute things a little bit more. So
and like I said with Rosie, I think Hannah's initial plan of me, Griffin, Rosie, I thought that was the best plan for Rosie.
Yeah.
And I think had Rosie perhaps been the architect of orchestrating that versus letting Hannah, then he could sit at the end and say, my social game was in here, and here's how it's been played. And people are like, yep, no, we saw, and you ran the ship.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Oh, what if game.
I'm sure the players themselves have been talking about it for a full year or two.
Yeah, it never stops, really.
So I guess looking at Jordan's game as a whole, what was your favorite parts, and what maybe do you think that she could have done different?
It's so hard because when you win a season and people ask, like, what could you have done differently? Like, would you want to change anything? Like, she obviously played the best game that she could with the people that she had, with everything that transpired. So I think she played a very solid, stable, smart, calculated game. And I think that's why she won, because people recognize that, despite her having a connection with Megan and people kind of viewing that as a little cheap. But everybody did come in with relationships that they either could capitalize on or didn't. So I think she's an amazing winner for an all-star season, hands down. And I also love the duality of her previous season and how she played, and then this season. So I don't know, that whole storyline just kind of resonated with me a lot. And I think I don't think she could have done anything differently, and I don't think she should have.
So, okay, there's one part of Jordan's game I have to bring up. So I think Jordan played a fantastic original tribe, fantastic merged tribe. I still question the decision in the swap, right?
Right.
And granted, like, it's more Megan who meets over to Jordan, right? And then they play both their idols, and Meredith goes home, right, from the original Braun. Yeah. And I remember I was like, well, I guess this works. And in a very results-oriented way, this is great. But like, I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah. There was some time in that middle ground, but I don't know. I'm always really suspect too of, like, how much are we seeing? What are we not seeing? Like, was this really smart? And it just isn't really.
I mean, what if there's a world where the tribe swap places and her tribe votes 3 people out instead? Like, is that, do we see the original Braun get decimated? Do we see Meredith go, and then we see Adam and Megan and Rosie, or do we see like, all right, Meredith goes, but then things turn out poorly for her, Dallas, and Megan?
Right.
Do Megan and Dallas go, and she's the last one standing?
Which could have happened.
Yeah, it likely could have. I think her connection with Rosie and Adam maybe would have pulled it through, but like, in results-oriented matter, that swap tribe worked out great.
Yeah.
But like, what she and Megan did there, I was like, huh. I guess you have 2 idols. Why not? But
I guess so. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
But at the end of the day, it worked out.
It did.
Right? And really, that swap tribe gave Jordan all the ammunition she needed to rule the merge tribe.
100%.
Um, looking back this season, are there any players that you want to talk about that deeply impressed you?
Honestly, it was for me watching this season, I was a little bit broken up. Like I watched I think the first 4 episodes kind of like really early on. I like to cluster them. I'm a binge watcher of episodes and seasons. For me, I hate saying this, but it really was the people in like the final 6 or 7 that I really gravitated towards a lot of my interest in very early on in the season. The only person I really knew was Hannah personally. I was super curious to see how Boogie and Adam would play into this game. They were people that were talked about continuously, especially in the beginning. And then with all the drama with like Adam's story and like his rivalries that he had and his relationships with other people killed me. Like I loved watching his conversations and his thoughts and Adam was very animated at a lot of the challenges. Like he'd get out and he'd swear and like walk off. It was just Adam to me was a huge character. I really liked watching him play. I think his exit out of the game was great. But those were kind of the players, even from the very beginning, that I found myself drawn to and kind of paying attention to their game. Griffin, I was really interested in Griffin's story and how he was going to navigate, like coming back. And I think he did a great job. I was a huge Griffin fan, so yeah.
So, I mean, I agree with you about Adam. Where like, for all of Jordan winning, this season, especially the merge, revolved around Adam. Right? It's all about what is Adam doing? Can we get Adam out? Where is Adam right now? Right? So
like the whole season was just like, where's Adam? Like
this whole season was gone a different direction, but then Adam happened, so all went in a whole different path.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think this season though it had a lot of very different players. I love any all-star comeback returnee season. It's just fun to see like the interactions and what people bring and the relationships they rely on. And obviously it worked out very well for Megan and Jordan. But there were other connections and previous people that have played with each other. And it's just interesting to see how much stock is put into that and who it works for and who it doesn't. So I love returner seasons. They're fun.
Which is why the Surviving Reelfoot season this summer is going to be very fascinating to see how things unfold.
Oh my God, I cannot wait to watch it. Cannot wait.
So, and Adam is just like, the story of my Survivor life is everyone coming after me constantly. Now, we have to talk about the Bloomy, the player of the episode awards. Though, given this is the finale and given how the finale works, I imagine we both are likely to give the player of the episode to the same person.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of have to, I feel. Yeah, and my cat is trying to get into me.
I mean, I'll talk about Jordan first, and I'll assume you can talk about Jordan after. Jordan has, like I use the word sculpt, Jordan has really defined this end game. I think Jordan had these great shields with Megan and Adam, but also outplayed in the point where Jordan was able to beat Megan despite Megan being the front runner come the mid game. I think Jordan's way of navigating her different alliances and the relationships to position herself, leveraging both tribe connections as well as season connections, was phenomenal. I think really this is textbook of what you want to be doing in a all-star season is look at Jordan's game.
Yep. I agree. And I think her confidence level, knowing the threats that Megan brought and Rosie brought, to be honest, being aware of what they were bringing to the table and still having enough confidence in her own game, in her own relationships, and the moves that she had made, and the way that she had kind of tailored this end game was iconic. Like she did such a great job with that. And I think Megan, where Megan was more rigid and confined, because she was a challenge beast and kind of got kind of typecasted so early, Jordan had the flexibility to be able to bounce back and forth and kind of rely on different aspects of the game where Megan was kind of pigeonholed.
Yeah.
And I just think that Jordan was so masterful at especially the end game.
Yeah, I don't know if I've been complimentary enough of Megan's game, but the fact that Megan is sitting at Final Tribal Council, despite both she and Adam have so much adversity in their game of everyone looking at them constantly and wanting to target them constantly.
Yeah.
For Megan to pull it off and be their end is such a massive accomplishment.
It is. And I mean, her name was mentioned the entire
that's what surprised me. Like, we saw Boogie saying Megan's a threat. We had players saying Megan is a threat that needs to go, but she didn't get their votes at the end, even despite that.
Right. And I mean, you also have to consider where those words are coming from, because if it's people on the bottom who are scrambling, that's one thing. You have Boogie saying Megan is a threat, and she still wound up getting to the end. So,
and so I think if we were to talk about player of the season, it's hard to not say it as the winner as the player of the season. But, looking at the chart I have of the player of the episode, Jordan took episode 10, 12, 13, and 14 for player of the season.
Yeah.
And even she got one of the 2 spots for episode 1 as well.
Yeah.
And so Jordan, it's her season, and the Bloomy confirms it.
Bloomy confirms it.
Yeah, scientifically accurate.
Yeah, Bloomy.
Well, do you have anything else you want to mention about this season, or anything else to talk about?
One thing that I do want to say is that Casey and I played Reelfoot together. We were on
probably should have led with that.
We are we were on the same tribe, very opposite ends of that tribe, I think. But post that game, we have become very, very, very close friends. The way that he does this season and the way that this entire game is formatted, I just commend him so much for how much work gets put in. The episodes are amazing. Like, I have enjoyed watching this season more than, I mean, I don't watch a lot of like previous games as a rule, but I have enjoyed watching this probably more than I do television shows. I was very invested. I followed a lot of it. I cared a lot about the players and what was happening. And I just felt like he did such a good job with the episodes and kind of relaying the connections the players had. I think he did a really good job. So I just want to give a shout out, because I think it showed in the quality of these episodes.
All-Star games are complicated. Players have a lot of histories, a lot of past, and I really appreciated, as you and I both watching, not knowing or understanding anything about Bloomington in advance and what these players have done. I really appreciated how it was laid out and how we really got to know all the players.
Yeah, it was very easy to follow. Very.
Well, Angela, any last words?
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah. No, I just want to say this has been a fantastic way to kind of conclude watching Surviving Bloomington by having you back on the podcast with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And we only went for an hour and a half.
I know, like, really, we're not setting any records right now. Actually, we probably are for an episode recap, but like, I'm sure you can forgive me for that.
Yeah, I will.
Angela, is there anything that you're getting involved in or doing this summer you want to shout out or let people know about?
I am on production for 2 live games this summer that I am so excited about. Which this is my first time being on production for Can You Survive? I did volunteer last year. And we're doing two games back to back. It's Blood versus Water, and then there's an individual game happening 2 days after that.
It's gonna be a lot.
It's gonna be a lot, but I'm so excited. The cast is amazing. Can You Survive is just a fantastic game in general. And then Outlast in Massachusetts is about a week after that. So, and I'm on production for that also. So my summer is going to be very busy, but I'm going to be surrounded by all of my people and I just can't wait.
Now, Can You Survive plans on live streaming?
We are only live streaming.
Okay.
Yes.
So follow along on the Can You Survive Facebook page. You might get to see Angela in the background as production.
Yeah.
And then Outlast,
Yes.
which takes place outside of Boston, Massachusetts, that does not live stream, but actually records. And well, season 1 is aired. I imagine they're planning to have season 2 air on YouTube as well. And I also really enjoyed the editing and that season as well.
Yes. Yeah. Justin does an amazing job.
And if you thought Surviving Bloomington was fast paced, Outlast is faster.
Yeah. It's a very fast paced game. Also very entertaining. Another, like, they're all just such well run games. I think it tells towards the people behind running a lot of these games have a lot of experience. So like Casey does, Justin does, Brandon does, and they're just all fantastic games. So
as for me, I need to first say thank you again to Angela. Thank you again to everyone who has spent their time talking about Surviving Bloomington. I thank you to all the various hosts, especially Casey for helping arrange the hosts. Thank you for Casey as well for editing and making this available. This has been very fun to watch and really get to see Surviving Bloomington. And I've really enjoyed it as a TV show and a product, especially just kind of the fun he's had with it, the music, and just how the storyline. It's been a blast for me. For those of you who are just like, where can I get more Surviving Bloomington content? Well, season 6 will be running in June. Now, Surviving Bloomington, their cast is already open. And, well, the cast is out.
right.
First names. And so if you go to the Surviving Bloomington website, you can go ahead and check out the players. And if you like a player, you can also donate to them. And so feel free to support players you want. As we saw from this season, players who have highest donations get advantages in the comeback challenges in other small ways. Beyond that, we'll see if there's more Surviving Bloomington content in the podcast to come. But again, thank you all for listening, and thank you, Angela, for your time today.
Thank you.
All right, have a great rest of your day, y'all.